by Yu Ya.
Enlightenment and transformation. Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadows of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie wait in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should neither aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment. Female is your transformation. Child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness so it may enlighten you. Man, bring your light boldly into the darkness so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done for me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today. And I'm so thankful.
That's his home. Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the encouragement thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or a weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands, and if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create same spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. Because the problem is, when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call in, we'll be like, "You going to church?" And I'm like, "Where have y'all been at?"
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore, the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? We do. It's a good day for exorcism.
Anu Nation is home to the Anu spiritual order founded by Chief Jegna Haru Yuya Asan Anu. Some of the components of Anu Nation are Anu Life Global Ministries, Enlightenment and Transformation, Sadulu House, and Osiris Life Spiritual Services. SaduluHouse.com is the school component of Anu Nation, where spiritual empowerment through education and training is emphasized. One way that is accomplished is through our monthly webinars. Our webinars are packed with foundational information, rituals, and live instruction to empower your spiritual work. At SaduluHouse.com, you can view our diverse list of topics for this year, that range from meditation to sex magic. And you can also register for any of the webinars at your convenience, sign up for our introductory Orisha class, schedule a spiritual reading, and sign up for the Anu Spiritual Training course. Enlightenment and Transformation is the media component of Anu Nation. Here, you can view all of our archived shows from over the years to our current segments. They include Chief Speaks, Masterminds Monday, Anu Asafo, Thunderground Thursdays, and Foundational Fridays. You can also visit us on our YouTube channels. They are Enlightenment and Transformation, Orisha Yoruba, and Anu Nation. Osiris Life Spiritual Services is for those who are ready to take the necessary actions to bring your life into holistic balance. Here we offer consistent monthly one-on-one coaching, solutions that are tailored just for you, practical hands-on self-development techniques that will accompany your monthly readings, and customized practical strategies designed for you that guarantee positive results. Simply choose the package that best fits your needs. And last but not least, AlphaOmegaStore.com. The Alpha Omega Store is our online botanica where we offer divination tools, herbs and incense, DVDs, books, and other hard-to-find ritual items. You can also get our best-selling foundational book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. Other great works from Anu Nation are Shrine and Altar, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, and Natural Hair for Young Women. All great books to assist you on your journey. To find out more on how to get involved with Anu Nation, visit our websites and YouTube channels and be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter.
Okay. Eku Oruko. Eku Oruvo. Oruko Mini Yuya. Bawoni Nikan. Good morning, everyone. This is Chief Yuya, and how are you all this morning? Yeah, I was just feeling the Yoruba vibe a little bit this morning. But welcome, everyone, to Chief Speaks. My name is Chief Yuya, and you, of course, are listening to Enlightenment and Transformation. And I want to welcome all of our first-time listeners, as well as all of our traditional and historical listeners. I see everyone's in the, not everyone, because I know everyone doesn't usually show up to about 20 minutes into the show. But I see a lot of you are currently in the chat room. So peace to you all in the chat. We got a couple of people on Blog Talk, and we got some folks on YouTube as well. Excuse me. So just welcome to all of you. Before we get started, let me deal with the elephant in the room. I know a lot of you who tune in regularly noticed that I had to end the show a bit early last Friday. And let me start by saying thank you for everyone who reached out, who called, and everyone who also, wrote in a message just to check on me to see how I was doing. For some reason, I guess I know the reason, it got back to me that a couple people thought I was crying on the air. I wasn't crying. I actually was nauseated. Yeah, I was still dealing with it. I'm still not 100%, but I mustered up enough strength this morning to juice up some pineapple and some other things to get through today's segment. Yeah, dealing with a real severe stomach virus. And in my usual fashion of self-abuse and masochism, I attempted to, or sadism, I attempted to try to do Friday's show, even though I was extremely nauseated. And it just was not, it was disrespectful to my body. And it was disrespectful to the spirits that keep me sustained. So No, what you heard Friday was me having to hurry up and get off because I was in the middle of vomiting. I'm trying not to be too disgusting. But yeah, the night before that, Thursday night, I was in the hospital for a good amount of the day. I had to help someone out who injured themselves. And so I took them to the hospital. And that evening, I hit a salad bar. And I'm 100% positive it was a combination of being in that disgusting hospital environment. And I was in there for a very long time because I gave him a lift, and then I waited around till the doctors was done with him, and then took him back home, helped him pick up some food and things like that. So, I was in that environment for a while, and then I think I just grabbed some bad greens, and that Friday when I had awoken that dawning, my stomach was kind of hemmed up, and I tried to push through it, but it was not happening. That was probably the worst, and it still is because I'm still in pain, but that's probably the worst stomach virus I've ever had in my life. I almost put the chrome to my head. It was so bad. So yeah, that's what happened Friday. That's why I had to rush off the show, because I was actually really, really sick, really bad. And like I said, I was disrespectful, because I do rituals and I do work for Alafia, for good health, pretty much consistently. And, and I stay in very good health. I don't really get sick, anything like that. Maybe like once every couple of years if I do something stupid, usually just me doing something dumb, overexerting myself or not eating properly or something. But if I don't do any of that, I pretty much never get sick. So to be in a situation like that, I pushed it, way beyond what I should, and that was egoic of me to do something like that. And I want to thank everyone who did rituals, because I felt the difference, because there was at one point where I just kind of, I couldn't do anything but just kind of roll up in the fetal position. And then, the phone calls were coming in and the emails and "You okay, Baba?" And I couldn't even look at the phone. I was in so much pain. But then it kind of started to subside a little bit and I could at least walk. So, I thank you all, who stepped up and helped me out. I really, really, really do appreciate it, because, it makes the difference, and it made the difference. So thank you, and I just wanted to explain. I know I didn't give any explanation, so I didn't, I know people were probably thinking the worst or whatever, but like I said, I didn't want to be vomiting on the air and completely, disgust everyone in that way. So I had to hurry up, and I was trying to hurry up and mute everything because I didn't want to think that I ended the show and then run to the bathroom and be vomiting, but the mic and everything is still on. So I was trying to hurry up and hang up the phones and stuff on YouTube and everything, because then that would really be the talk of the town. So yeah, give thanks. I'm moving a little slow today. All right. So I ask you all just to bear with me. I'm still not 100%, and still a little woozy. So just bear with me. I'm gonna get the information out, but I may just get it out a little slower than I usually do. Okay. But yeah, I wasn't crying anything. It wasn't anything emotional. It just sounded like it because I was trying to hold that stuff back before the fury came. I didn't want you all to have to be subjected to that. And thank you all who, especially you, Sister Keisha. I don't think she's on yet, but she checked in and gave some health advice and stuff like that. So thank you all, for looking out for the old man. It happens. But like I said, it was a product of my own disrespect. And I thought about the sacred Odu of Otuapon Meji. And Otuapon Meji is that Odu of those who have a lot of physicality, where we identify with the body very heavily. And people who come through that Odu passageway, they tend to abuse themselves or allow themselves to be abused because they have such high levels of physical endurance, and that has been a sickness of mine that I have to really work on. And yeah, I give you a little Orisha instruction here. That's a sickness that I have. I don't know if anyone's picked up on it, but I'm a bit of a workaholic, and the only ones who can really get me to stop are Oshun women. Oshun men too, actually. Oshun men can get me out of that. I got some Oshun brothers I know, and they'll, let's go to a cigar bar. Let's go, they having this wine tasting thing. I don't care nothing about that. But there's something about that energy of that Oshun vibration that can pull me out of work mode, very much like the stories. You see, Oshuns could darn near make me lazy. But if that balance isn't around to cool off my consistent fire, then I run the risk of burning myself thin. And that's really what happened. Yes, I have had that kind of tea, Sister Shasha. Yeah. I wasn't even able to really to do tea. I used tea just to try to keep my system lubricated. So I could, I'm trying not to be nasty, but, trying to keep my system lubricated to get things back through. And it was only coming out one way, the mouth. I would have welcomed it to come out the other way. But yeah, it was only coming out through the nausea. So yeah, I had some of the Cerecy tea, and I had some echinacea tea. I had some golden seal on tap. I had some activated charcoal that I was taking in, when I was able to take things in, and I mashed that up with some mango slices, because the mango is real good at the level of acidity in it when you're having those type of stomach issues. I couldn't do the pineapple until today because I couldn't have that much acid. But I'm doing a little bit of the pineapple now just to kind of keep things cool. So yeah, I fortified, but it was one of those situations I just had to go through it. The herbs wasn't really, because everything was coming back up anyway. So, just had to sit there and say, now look what you did. Look what you did, dummy. It was one of those situations, um, yeah, it is what it is. But, like I said, thank you all, Yeah, I did have some coconut water, Sister Allison. Actually, I was taking sips of the coconut water because, that helps to clean out parasites. And I guess I'm telling everybody what I did in case you ever have that problem. I also took some papaya and mashed the seeds up in my mortar and pestle, and I ate those as well because papaya seeds are really good for cleaning out the intestinal tract. And I also did some, I had some pomegranate. Pomegranate was kind of old. I had an old pomegranate, but I don't know. They never seem to go bad. But I had a pomegranate. I know this is bad, but I had it in my refrigerator for about 2 months, 3 months. But I cut that sucker in half, and it looked fine on the inside. So I chewed up some of those pomegranate seeds as well. Pomegranate is real good for cleaning out those type of infections like that. And yeah, that slowly, little by little is getting me back on top. So if any of you ever have an issue like that, you can utilize any of those solutions to kind of, to get yourself right again. But like I said, yeah, I wasn't crying or anything. I just, man, it was a bad time. It was a bad time, So, yeah, we'll get into it. But, just as a note, that's not what I sound like when I cry. You all should know that. That's not what I sound like. When I cry, I sound like this. All right. That's what I sound like when I cry. Now let's get back into it. Yeah, man. So we've been talking about spiritual authority. All right. And I think it's been a good couple of sessions that we've had lately, dealing with this subject. I can only hope that you've been enjoying it like I have, because it's like I said when I started it off, you know, Brother Shaka said he spit out his lunch break. Oh man. Well, that's what I sound like when I cry. But anyway, let me get some of this pineapple juice, man. Even me out. There we go. Yeah, man. So yeah, Anwar says, LOL, us men crumple up and act like we about to die and the world is ending. Yeah, that's what I felt like. It's like that too when you don't normally get sick. You don't know how to handle it when it happens. I got all the cures for everybody else because I'm the medicine man. Everybody knows that. But I've never really built up a tolerance to being sick like that, because it doesn't happen often enough. But no, it was serious, man. I have a high tolerance for pain. That joint was serious, man. I was ready to go. I was like, you could just kill me now. This needs to stop. I've lived a full life. I'm done. Just kill me. I can't. And at one point I said that. I said, yo, I was talking to my Egun. I said, I can't take anymore. You got to stop this. You have to stop this. I couldn't breathe. My heart rate was so high from the pain. I couldn't even breathe. So nah, come on. And I ain't going to a hospital. You know that. So either kill me now or quit the pain because I got things to do. So anyway, we've been talking about now everybody making fun of my pomegranate. Right, whatever. Yeah, I'm an old food eater, So yeah, the thing is, hold on a second, 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. So, as I warned you all before we started this month's segments, was that the title itself is pretty boring. Spiritual authority, whoop-de-doo, right? Almost sounds like I'm about to do a sermon in church, walking in the authority of the Lord. But it's such a deep thing, I'm telling you, because it's like your activator, in terms of the work that we do. So often, and I was kind of speaking about this Friday, and I don't remember everything I was talking about Friday, to be honest with you. I was in a bit of a daze, even when I was talking, yeah, I didn't really understand. I was just kind of talking in a fog a little bit, but Pomegranate was born in '88. But yeah, so the overall subject and the idea, of it, why it's so critical is because the simple reason, look at it like this, right? You may have 3 or 4 cars in your driveway, right? Let's say if it's you, your mate, and you have 2, 3 children or whatever, and you got 3 or 4 cars in your driveway, right? Some people have the authority to start them cars up and move them, and some people don't. Plain and simple, right? So the power is actually there, but not everyone has the access to tap into that power. Now, a lot of times when we're doing spiritual work or we're involved in a spiritual community, we don't realize that there's been a certain level of ashe or power or authority. Because remember, when you're dealing with ashe, you're not just dealing with power. A lot of times the definitions there are a little confused when you talk about ashe. And people will say, oh, I've heard people say it just means the same thing as amen. You know, it's the same thing, ashe. And that's not correct per se. You know, primarily you're dealing with authority that comes through lineage when you're dealing with ashe, because ashe references you to menstrual blood. Okay, so it's speaking about that root or that source lineage demarcated through the woman. So you're handed down that level of power through the feminine presence, and you handed down your authority through the masculine presence, right? So what's so significant, peace, Sister Georgina, by the way, from the Netherlands. What's so significant? Oh, and let me give anyone a calling number. I'm sorry. So I'm still in a little bit of a fog. 515-605-9862 if you want to call and speak, or just listen in that way if it's more convenient for you. And you know, during my sojourn and through the halls of pain, I decided I might cut off that Blog Talk number a little sooner. I figured I would do it in the solstice, the summer solstice. But I usually time most things I do by either the equinox or the solstice. But you know, when you're going through those moments like that, you become very focused. And I was like, I might as well just kill the Blog Talk now. You know, put that money I'm spending every month there to somewhere else. You know. So anyway. Because I was thinking about doing another app, actually, just for Sedulu House itself. So I was like, put that money to an app, you know. But anyway, so the idea, again, let's go back to the authority piece, what's handed down to you through that power and through that authority. A lot of times we don't realize that the things that we're waiting on for an unseen force to do for us have already been commissioned for us to do ourselves, because Olodumare negated a part of itself in order to create us. So once it negated a part of itself, it deposited a portion of its authority within us. So a lot of times we're looking and we're saying, okay, you know, and I see this so often in the work I do. People want mates, or they want jobs, they want all of these different things. And then I'll say, well, what have you done to make those things happen? Nothing, you know. And it becomes very confusing for them, because a lot of times they don't understand that the way this works, and when I say this works and speaking spirituality and things like that, is that you have to deposit some form of initiator first, you know, before you can make something happen, because that initiator becomes your deposit of authority. You know, so say, for instance, someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to mate. I'm tired of being alone. I say, okay, well, have you gone out to meet anybody? You know, have you gone to any events or something where people are that, you know, that are into the same things that you're into, where you can meet? No, I pretty much just stay in the house. I don't, but I've been doing Oshun rituals. So now you want Oshun to do something that you have already been given the authority to do yourself. You see, and it creates a supreme confusion, because a lot of times we're unwilling to move. We don't understand some of the process and some of the reason why we got a portion of Olodumare when we came to the planet. You know, what was the necessity in that? What was the reasoning behind that? Because there are certain things that we were told to come here and do ourselves, and we're still waiting for some heavenly force to do it for us. You see, so when you're looking at authority, you're not just looking at the ability or the right or the gumption to stir and move and wield power. You're looking at the right and the gumption to do things for yourself, to say this is what it's going to be and it's not going to be that. You know, I spoke about this like here and there before, but I saw someone brought back to life more than one time. But the first time was actually in a Christian church. And long story short, one of the deacons, his wife, had a stroke right there on the spot. She was gone in the middle of service. And he stood her up on the wall, you know, and it just looked, the whole thing just looked crazy, you know. Everybody was crying and stuff. And oh my, you know, they had called the ambulance, and he stood her up on the wall, dead, lifeless body, and would not accept that she was dying. Said, no, no. And he was saying, in the name of Jesus, you are healed, you will rise, da, da, da. You know, he's just going off. And he's saying, come back. And don't you know this woman came back to life? Now, I know you probably saying, oh, she just passed out. She was just unconscious. She was just da, 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 da. I know. Because it sounds unbelievable. That's why I don't really talk about it. It's probably the first time I've ever even mentioned it on the air. And I've been on the show for 6 years now. I've seen a lot of things that would shock you, you know, but I don't always speak about those things because then it's like, you know, it becomes about the shock value. But what that always did for me, that moment when I saw that, and I saw some other things too, you know, it spoke to me about the innate power and the innate authority that we all have that sometimes we skip over or we regulate to someone else who doesn't have any authority to willpower, which I spoke about last time. You see, so even in that environment, we may say, but he wasn't conscious. He was a Christian. He was this and that, you know, all the different things we like to say to keep ourselves ignorant. The bottom line is we all come onto the planet and into the world with a certain degree of authority and a certain degree of power as a result, regardless of what our investment is. Those gifts come without repentance. You know, so repentance means to just go back on your way of thinking. You don't necessarily have to go back on your way of thinking and say, okay, you know what, now I'm going to commit myself to an African paradigm, and now I'm going to have my gift. You could have your gift without that, you know, and how you use it is up to you, how you choose to use it, you know. You look at so many artists out today, musical artists, they have gifts. You know, they have the ability to say things and get people to listen to them and follow them and so forth and so on, but they may not necessarily use it for the right reasons. But the gift is there. You can't deny the gift is there. You see? So it's the same thing that we're dealing with here, you know. And again, I know that's a thumbs down trigger. I know it's a thumbs down trigger. I need a little bit more of that pineapple. But so yeah, there is certain power and authority that we already come to the planet with. And a lot of times we end up giving it away, you know, whether it be through our laziness or through just our unawareness, we give it away. You know, like I spoke about earlier, those without souls don't have that lineage connection, don't have the ability to author power. Authority comes from the word author. They don't have the ability to write those scripts. So what they have to do is try to trick you into allowing you to, or move you out the way so that they can wield your power. And I spoke about that show before the last, and I know, you know, or last show, excuse me. I know that's kind of a difficult concept to think about for some because it has such far-reaching implications. And, you know, for a lot of us, when we first come into our awakening, is that anger, because we realize how many things have been done to us that have been done consistently for so long. And I mean, I've seen people break down and cry, you know, like in study groups, you know, people came for the first time and, you know, like somebody brought a friend and then we start talking about some things. I've seen people literally, I'm just talking about women. I've seen grown men just break down and cry. You know, you mean to tell me all this time, this and that and that and that and that? When you start connecting the dots and realizing like, yeah, man, you were getting, you know, rung through the washer all this time, you know, and it's heartbreaking to think that someone would be so sinister, but this is the way of the world as it pertains to, you know, as it is today. So, you know, the ultimate idea that we're talking about here when we're dealing with authority, like, and I'll give again the example of the elder, and I call him an elder, Christian or not, it's an elder. You gotta always remember, I know in our arrogance of consciousness, we feel like we're just better than everybody else. I'm just laughing because it's such a trite idea. But that elder said, I am authoring and scripting what this is going to be. It doesn't matter what the symptoms and the signs are. I am authoring what it's going to be. Y'all all could be over there crying and screaming and, you know, this woman just died. No, I'm telling you what it's going to be. He stood her up on the wall, and it looked brutal. Honestly, it looked like he was abusing her. It looked brutal. You know, he picked her up and held on the wall. He said, "Get up, get up." You know, I think he might have smacked her one time. You know, it's dead body. But he was authoring what it was going to be. You see, he wasn't, no, my wife isn't dying like this. Maybe I've already seen our death. This ain't it. Now, y'all don't know that because y'all haven't seen, you haven't witnessed the authoring. But this is not how we're going to go out, you know? So a lot of times we get so locked into the symptoms. We get so locked into the after effects of what we've seen in terms of this life and in terms of this world. And we begin to author based on the effects. It's kind of like the old saying, does art imitate life or life imitate art? It kind of goes hand in hand sometimes, you know, in that sense. But when you get to that place where you can say, regardless of what I'm seeing, regardless of what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm holding on to based on the seed or based on the initiator that I've planted and the authority that I know that I have. So again, you know, you're dealing with someone who may want to mate. Like I say, go back to that, may want a job or whatever. I got people coming to me all the time. I need more money. Okay, well, what do? I work part-time at such and such. Why don't you work full-time? Honestly, I'm just tired of working for people. I don't work for people anymore. Okay, cool. So what kind of business you want to get started? I don't know. All right, so what are we talking about here? Why are you wasting my time? What do you really want? You know, there has to be some form of a seed implanted first because that's your authority deposited. You see? So if you say, well, listen, man, I'm making t-shirts or I'm making hats, you know, or I crochet, you know, I make crochet tank tops and pants or whatever it is. I got some kind of thing that I'm doing. That's your seed, you see, where your authority is deposited. And then we work from the point of your authority, as opposed to people always looking to say, well, through abjecting my role, objecting my authority, I'm going to give this to someone else. I'm going to give this to another energy. I'm going to give this to another spirit to do. It doesn't work in that way. You know, UK, you're on the air.
Ikaro Chief, yeah.
Hey, Ikaro, how you doing, brother?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm okay. I'm little by little.
Right, Chief, man. Good. I'm glad you're doing better than what you were on Friday.
Give thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, give thanks.
Chief Yuya, I wanted to speak about something, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it is related to the subject of the month.
Okay.
I'm a man that I normally drink more so than get visions, Chief. And on Thursday night, as I was laying down, I received a very strong message, and it was to say that we need to deal with what is behind the veil before we can develop spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about dealing behind the veil, dealing with the depths of our psyche related to Olekun.
Mm-hmm.
But also I was thinking of linking it to developing spiritually. Sometimes we are very keen to learn about the Orisha, to learn about Aragon, to learn about different spiritual pathways, but yet we don't deal with our core issues, which are blocking our spiritual progress by their presence. And so this is just really what I wanted to share with you today, because as I say, I'm a man, I don't normally get visions and so forth when in my waking state. I get my messages in my sleep, and this one was very, very strong on Thursday evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I really just wanted to share that, Chief.
Oh, give thanks, man. Give thanks. You know, I'm all about dealing with the mind, man. So absolutely, totally agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, Chief.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Byron.
So thank you. No problem. It's a pleasure. And I'll have a good day, and we're going to continue to listen here.
Okay, beautiful. Give thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Order.
So Brother Byron speaks about going beyond the veil. And he's so right in that, Caribbean people, it's always the dreams. I tell you that all the time. People from the islands, that's the gift, especially Jamaican islands, where his family runs from, and Jamaicans are just Nigerians, the same people, same DNA, but they dream, boy. They dream like you wouldn't imagine, So, with that idea of going beyond the veil, it hits so many different things, because there's different forms of the veil too. And most times when you completely tear the veil, because that's really what you want to do. If you look at most mythology or stories and stuff, you don't just walk through the veil. You got to rip it. So that takes you to that Oya piece. Oya, her name means she tore it. But there's a tearing of the veil, meaning that the wall that was there, or more so importantly, what stood there before, you can't go back on. So it's a very revolutionary act, to go through the veil or to tear the veil. It's revolutionary because you can't go back. A revolutionary act is an act where you do something and you can't take it back. Okay, you cross a bridge and you burn the bridge behind you. That's revolution. Anything outside of that is not so much that. I know it may feel like it, or people may call it that, but it's not that. So when you tear that veil, you sacrifice the fullness of what you currently are in order to be something else in a glorified form, and that's actually what I was thinking about this dawning. It's so funny, not funny, I shouldn't say that. Interesting or beautiful. Let me use that word. Beautifully awesome that the brother would call in and share that piece, because this dawning I was thinking about just this very fact. And I was saying, so often, despite what people are taught, they're still locked into tradition, and they're locked into the historical patterns, and they refuse to do better despite what you teach them or what you show them. And a lot of the work that I do is not so much about studying to try to figure out new things to teach you all, because I don't have to study anymore at this point to teach. I study for me at this point, so I can continue to grow and learn. And like I said, I'm a student, so I'm still trying to figure things. There's still stuff I'm trying to figure out, so I study more so for me. The things that I study, y'all wouldn't even be interested in. In all honesty, you'd probably find completely boring. But so sometimes I think about that. That's a point of contention. Like, how do I deliver this? How do I deliver that? How do I finally get them out of this sleep, this slumber? Because that sleep and slumber, that's what can kill you as a teacher. If anyone has ever taught or worked in a school, anything, and had to work with a lot of rebellious and obstinate students, think about how tired you were at the end of the day. You could have been lifting bricks all day in a construction yard and have more energy at the end of the day than dealing with a bunch of hard-headed students. It just takes everything out of you. So you figure out ways to conserve yourself and ways to still get the message across and things like that. Sometimes maybe being a little outrageous. You try different things to try to break the lock and the hold of those patterns. I was witnessing one of my youth having a debate yesterday, well, helping him really, with this young girl. She's a Christian, and they always get, that's how it is. They probably going to end up, I'm gonna have to chase them out the yard or something off the back steps one day. They probably going to end up messing around. But he, Christian thing. I think her pops might be a Hebrew Israelite. I think I gotta meet him. But, because she comes with a little different angle, but she doesn't know anything she's talking about. I didn't actually realize how simple she was until yesterday, because the stuff she was saying, it was all emotional. And he's texting her or no, they wasn't on tape. It was on some type of platform. It was like a party line. So it was them and a bunch of their friends. And he's sending these pictures of Osset and Heru. And he's saying, listen, this is before your Jesus and Christ. Can you explain this? And boom, 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 boom. And she's like, listen, that's your opinion. And I said, wait a minute. She just called an image your opinion? I said, yo, son, just stop talking. Stop. Just leave it alone. You know, he was like, no, Baba, it's so frustrated. I was like, all right, you know. So then he just asked him very simple questions. I said, well, ask her this. I said, do this. I said, just ask questions. Don't make accusations. I said, ask her, how was it that Moses, you know, he wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. I said, so ask her, how was it in the book of Deuteronomy, he wrote his own obituary? You know, see what she has to say about that. And then he asked her that, and she said, you know, well, he had a direct connection with God, so he knew when he was going to die. And I said, okay. I said, anything you're going to say, she's going to come back with something that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So you got to learn when to just pull back, man. So at one point, you know, he just kind of pulled back and was like, okay, all right. You know, so as a teacher, even myself, sometimes I see those same behaviors in some of you all. You know, some of the fear that you have, the trepidation, you know, when it comes to walking out on your authority and say, nah, F this, this is what it's going to be. Because I have that deposited, that authority deposited in me. I can call those shots. You know, I remember one time I was with one of my instructors. We were in my yard getting ready to do some work. And there was a groundhog. Matter of fact, I saw him the other day. I done got rid of so many of those things, man. My yard is a groundhog magnet. So there was a groundhog, and I was like annoyed. I said, man, I'm gonna sacrifice that sucker. And he was like, no, you can't do that, you know. Da, da, da. And I was like, why not? And he was like, well, you got to make sure it's cool with Orunmila. And I said, well, Orumila's in me, you know, so yeah, I think it's cool. And he was like, no, Haru, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You know, this is many, many years ago. But, you know, I'm always, like I told you, when it comes to me and my instructors, I'm like the old martial arts films, man. I'm very, very humble and loyal. So it's like, yes, master. Yes, master. I'm one of them, believe it or not. Because I appreciate people taking out the time to teach me, you know, so even to this day, you know, I appreciate it, man. You know, people don't have to do that. Not spending time doing that, man. So I humble myself and I'm just thankful, you know. So I was like, okay. But I still didn't feel like I was wrong. And I never did. It never caught up to me where I felt like I was wrong in that. You know, because I still felt like, wait a minute, well, we doing chickens and we doing this. Because then he said something later which made me like, nah, I'm right. He said, well, you know, it's like sacrificing a deer. I said, yeah, I'd sacrifice a deer. You know, I told him, I was like, I'd kill anything. And he said, yeah, but you shouldn't really, you know, do ebos with deers. I was like, why not? And he said, because, you know, they're like gentle and cute. I was like, wait a minute. Now, you know, now you're being subjective. So a chicken chickens are fun to play with. You know, we also do Aja's dogs. You know, we do ebos with dogs. I was like, dogs are pets. What about pigeons? We do pigeons all the time too. Pigeons are cute, and doves. So it's okay to do a dove, but not okay to do a deer. So when I started to see that level of subjectivity, I was like, all right, you know, just keep your mouth shut. And then when you get to that level, if you want to do an ebo with a skunk or a groundhog or whatever, you do what you need to do. You know, my thing is, though, don't do an ebo with anything you wouldn't eat. So just keep that in mind. You know, I'm not a meat eater, but if I kill it, I'll eat it. I know that sounds contradictory, right? I know. But that's where I'm at with it. I'll eat meat if I kill it. If I don't kill it, I'm not really feeling it too much. You know. But so yeah, that's a form of that authority, you know, and a lot of times we don't realize how much authority we really have, you know, and we have authority to screw up our lives. We're allowed to totally mess our lives up, but some of us are so scared to do that, you know, without realizing that we came here deposited in a certain measure of Ashe was deposited with us. Anytime you're doing work with that shoe is strengthening your nervous system. Well, why does your nervous system need to be strengthened by Eshu? So you can receive more Ashe. Well, what is Ashe? Power and spiritual authority. You see? Now, keep in mind that really I should just say more so spiritual authority, because you're being given the authority by Eshu to will more power. Okay, so it's not just that you're becoming more powerful, you're given more authority, so it's very similar to, let's say, like I spoke earlier about when I first got on, I gave the car example, and I said, well, you may have a car in the driveway, but you don't have the authority or the right to actually drive it. But the power is there. The power of the car is there. But let's say if you have a car and then you have a dump truck. The dump truck is, of course, stronger, more powerful than the passenger car. But you may not have the strength, or the fortitude to power the dump truck. So you do certain abos or certain work in order to build yourself up, in order to withstand the flowing of the power to the dump truck. Because essentially, when you're working with the flow of power, it's just flowing through you. It's not that you're the source of power. You're not. It just flows through you. So I see so often in this life where people are waiting for something else to do something for them that Olodumare has already given you the authority to do. I can't tell you how often I see that. And then you have individuals who build whole systems off of keeping that information from you. Let me get some more of this pineapple juice. Give me a second. It's weird. That's the other thing. Like I said, I won't eat meat that I don't kill. I have trouble drinking juice that I didn't juice. Like I can't just drink pineapple juice. It's too acidic and it's too much sugar. I'll go crazy. But if I juice it, then I can drink it. Or blend it. That's what I really did. I blended that. But so like I was saying, we were given the authority to do certain things. But because we're still looking in the sky, we're still praying and wishing and hoping, we're waiting for something to come and do what we were already commissioned to do. See, that's the sickness. That's the sickness that I'm talking about. And sometimes this is one of those subjects where this is a point of contention as a teacher. This is one of those subjects where no matter how much I teach, I mean, I could teach up a storm. I could teach myself into a fury, into a hurricane. This is one of those areas that no matter how hard I teach, it seems to always come back to people falling into the state of relinquishing their power. No matter how much. And it's one of those things you sit back and just scratch your head and say, how can I get them to get up off their behinds? And realize that working with these energies and whatnot is not a way now for them to further move themselves from the responsibility of action. It's not about that. Working with these energies and whatnot is just a way for them to gain more keys of access. You see, so when you work with Chango, you work with Yemoja, you work with Oshun, you work with any of them, you're learning their keys. That's why you become the Awo. You learn the mystery. You see, it's not just that now you have the power of Shango and, Shango will go do things for you. It's so that you have the keys and the principles of Orisha Oko. You have the keys and the principles of Oba, or the keys and the principles of Osayin. You see, which now gives you the authority to utilize that particular force yourself. And this is a tricky one, because this is when, see, certain subjects you learn as an instructor, you're fighting against programming. You can see it. You start talking about certain things and people just kind of dial out. And you could tell, okay, this is, and you almost have to use it as like a tester sometimes. And you realize, okay, cool. That, you mark, you almost document, okay, these are the areas. Okay, boom, I got that one. And then you keep going. Like, easy one like this. Everyone's having so much trouble in the States. Everyone hates the president, this, that, and the third. Why don't we just leave? Then the dial outs happen. Well, because my family is here, but you just told me you can't stand your family. You told me that your family never respected you. And yeah, but I want to be close to my mother. You told me your mother doesn't even call you. And since you became conscious, she told you to get out the house. Yeah, but I got my job. You told me you hate your job. You know, sometimes the things are so simple, but we won't take the personal authority that we have to see ourselves as for one, global citizens, or to see ourselves as global authorities. We won't have the gumption or take the onus on ourselves to do those things, you see. And you'd be surprised at the world that you're holding yourself back from when you don't step up into your divine right. You'd be surprised. It's just like I was speaking earlier. Sometimes when people ask me questions about relationships and they say, well, can we do this? Can we do that? You mean, can you? You know, matter of fact, there's a question out there now. I don't remember where it came from. Like I said, I've been kind of blurry past couple of days, but a sister had asked a question surrounding her menses, and I'd have to go back into the comments to find it. But she asked a question about her menses and basically what kind of work she could do during the menses. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sister Michelle may have answered it. I think it was a comment that the sister left on one of the videos. And I wasn't going to answer it at first because many of you probably already know that I purposely stay away from a lot of menses talk or just talks that surround women's issues. Not necessarily because I don't know about them, but this is how sometimes you sisters end up being sick and don't realizing it. And you got guys who are so unimpressed with being men and they're so fascinated with the idea, the possibility of presenting themselves as females that they stay in women's land all the time. You know, they telling you more about your menses and, you know, about how you should get pregnant and shouldn't get pregnant and what you're supposed to wear and what you're supposed to do with your body. And, you know, that's not cool. You know, and like I said earlier, sometimes we got to realize that getting certain things from the wrong source is actually more detrimental than just getting the information. We may look at it like, well, I just want the information, but it's not that simple. There's a way that, just like there's a way that power is delineated, there's a way that information is supposed to be delineated. And there's certain things that, you know, like I never showed any of my daughters how to wear a maxi pad. I've never done that. In fact, I've never even seen any of my daughters' maxi pads or boxes of them, anything like that. We don't do that. And my daughters have not seen any of my youths, my boys, condoms or anything like that. You know, there's a mystique, and that's where we talk about the veil too. There's a veil in the mystique of masculinity and femininity that sometimes we cross too much would create sickness. You know, the mystique of womanhood needs to stay the mystique of womanhood. You know, I don't need to know how much you paid for your shoes. Just put them on and look good in them. I don't need to know that you had to take the dress back 3 times and all that. Just, you know, set the dress up in a way that when I grab your booty, everything stays in place and you ain't fixing your shoulder strap and all that. That's all I really care about. Maintain the mystique, you know, and I'm not going to tell you before we went out that night that I was doing, you know, 500 push-ups and you holding my arm and like, ooh, you've been working out? No, I ain't been working out. Come on. You don't need to know all that. Just know that, yeah, his arm feel big. Mm-hmm. Maintain the mystique. You see, a lot of times we lose value for one another because we're crossing the lines of mystique a little bit too much. You know, so, you know, when I hear those can we questions a lot of times, I have to tell you, a lot of y'all are missing the point. You know, you're missing the point. It's not so much about can you and can I. Now, of course, this cosmic morality, don't get me wrong. And there's a cause and effect to things, but you came down here to experience the cause and effect, not to run away from it. Like when I was like, yo, I'm gonna sacrifice this groundhog, and he was like, no, you shouldn't do that. Well, what's gonna happen? I mess myself up. Okay, well, let's see how. I'm already messed up. I'm living in America, so let's just see what, somebody's got to be the pioneer. Somebody's got to be the frontiers person, somebody. So, I'm just saying in that sense, man, a lot of times we abdicate our value of authority by always looking for the rules, and especially when it comes into our indigenous spirituality, a lot of that comes again from religious programming. Excuse me 1 second, I need a little bit more of this. And I warned you all I'll be moving a little bit slower today, so thank you for riding with me. I know I'm talking slow and everything. I see Brother Shaga says, perhaps this is why women like men who don't talk too much. The mystique. Who knows? What we could do is ask the sisters why they like men who don't talk too much. Some women like it because they like to talk a lot. It's like you hear some women who say, well, I don't like guys who look too good because, I ain't gonna be sharing the mirror with them. I think it's all kind of reasons for that. But yeah, you're probably right, the mystique. Like they say, the strong, silent type, But I like women who don't talk too much, So how does that go? Yeah, but I think, the mystique is important, man. And a lot of us have lost that celebration for the masculine, and a lot of us have lost that celebration for the feminine, which is so sad. Like I spoke about recently, when we look at the alpha model, and a lot of times I've heard women so often say I'm an alpha, and then when I ask them why, they describe masculinity. That doesn't make you an alpha. That makes you a fake male. They say, well, I'm a leader, I'm a this, I'm a that. No, that's not an alpha. That's not an alpha female. Let's put it that way. And it's because sometimes that femininity is not celebrated. So we don't know what it is to see a woman in her full blossom. Often we don't know what it is to see a man in his full blossom. So we end up somewhere around the middle in this really distorted unisexual perspective. And either way, whoever's the boss becomes the alpha. And that's completely off. I'll give you a little small example. If I go into a space, the loudest chick who seems like the leader in that space or whatever, who's dominating the other females, is completely unattractive to me most times. Most times that's not the one I'm going to be attracted to. She wouldn't be the alpha to me in that space just because she can dominate other females and she seems like the leader. Because chances are that someone's going to be a headache anyway. I might look at the quiet, demure one. I might look at the one who seems to have more decorum, who might be soft-spoken. That may be the one that I may consider to be the alpha, because I can do more with her than someone who I got to argue with every day because she's used to being the boss. And I know people will take that, or women will take that and say, see, you want somebody you can walk all over. Well, if that's what you picked up, go ahead with it. At some point, you learn to use your authority to save yourself from dumb arguments too. I've learned that over the years too. If you didn't understand what I just said, then it ain't for you. Okay. So, there's different things that we all require and we all look for depending on what it is that we're attempting to do. But like I said, a lot of times we define that alpha presence as something completely other than what it truly is. Like I said before, the alpha serves the greatest purpose within the community paradigm. So if you have a community that's built around technology, the nerds are going to be the alphas. I don't care how tough you are and how much of a wolf and a beast you are. If the person who brings the greatest cultivation and gifts of technology is going to be the alpha in that environment. If you have a community that's built around craftsmanship or maybe beading or blanket making, you have a woman who excels at that, she's going to be the alpha in that environment because she's going to bring back the most resources to that community. She may not be the loud one. She may not have grown up with brothers and uncles all her life and had to fight all her life. And she may not have that story. She may just be real good at making blankets and beads. You see, so she becomes the alpha. So it's, it's determined by your community context, and that becomes key in that sense. But let's go back to authority for a minute. One of the key things that I just want you all to really see and to really pick up on when we're speaking about the value of walking in authority or spiritual authority. The first thing to recognize is that you come with authority. That's why so often, if you read some of the patakis in our sacred Odu, it will give you, you'll read a story, and then it will tell you at the end that a certain ebo was prescribed. And sometimes you see the person who came to the Babalao for consultation did not heed the advice of the Babalao, because that is their choice that they have to live out the consequences of what it is that they feel like doing. You see, so there's an authority that speaks that we do have the authority to ruin our lives if we so choose, or the authorities to push our destiny and to change our destiny or our destination from what it was previously outlined to be. And a lot of times we lose our value of being able to really step into our authority because we spend more time complaining and whining than we do actually speaking to the promises of what we planted earlier. You see, so, or sometimes we spend a lot of times around complaining and whining people. I see that also with a lot of my students. They don't know the value of celebratory activity. Okay, so for instance, you notice a lot of times if you travel to the astral realms, for any of you who do a degree of astral traveling, you find a lot of celebration. You don't see people sitting around studying. You go to astral realms, you don't see people reading books and debating. You see people partying, having sex, cookouts, dancing. That's the images that you tend to see. Even if you look at ancient images, from our pottery and our artwork and stuff, what do you normally see? Celebration. So you start to understand that there's a divine power of celebratory activities. Us as a people, Melanoid people, we are celebratory people. You look at, even if you go to your Christian law, you have the line of the tribe of Judah, which we come out of. Judah means what? Judah means praise. So you see the value in celebration and praise is the value of authority. Why is it the value of authority? Well, let's talk about rum for a second. We use a lot of rum in our spiritual work, right? I need more pineapple. Uh-oh. Don't do it to me, stomach. We doing good. I got a real sexy digestive system. Real sexy. I could eat anything. I've eaten rat. Even though they didn't tell me it was rat, I knew it was rat. I eat anything, but I can't eat dirty food. That's my Achilles heel. I can't eat anything dirty. I can't eat stuff that was made with old oil. Stuff like that, man, drives my system crazy. Can't be dirty, but I could eat anything except for pork. But yeah, sexy digestion. So let's go into what I'm saying for a moment here. When we look at rum, right? We use rum a lot, right? Or as we call OT, a strong drink. And like I've mentioned, I think I mentioned in one of my books, rum is particularly for celebration, which is one of the difference between rum, gin, or vodka, right? If we're using gin or vodka, we use that a lot of times for strength or for clarity. I like to use gin a lot. What's that brand? I'm looking for an old bottle. I got so many shrines in my house, man. I always could find a bottle or something. Surprise my youth, not alcoholics. But clear something. It's like 110 proof. Clear, it'll come crystal clear, I think is the name of it. When you put it in your mouth, it burns your whole mouth and then it dries like in a second. It'll come to me while I'm talking. But I like using that a lot. That works really well. But rum, Everclear. Thank you, Sister Gloria and Brother Lowe. We see we do have some alkies in the house. They came with it quick. I'm just messing with you. And Brother Shaga. And Sister Michelle. Y'all love drinking. Look at that. Everybody was quiet till I started talking about the liquor. And Brother Justin. Here we go. Just telling on yourselves. So yeah, man, that Everclear. So I like working with that a lot. Plus, the other reason I like working with Everclear is because it burns the crap out of my mouth and it numbs my lips. So, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. So there's a sacrifice that goes on whenever I use it. It's very similar to when you study about Marie Laveau and you learn about her in moments taking habanero peppers or Scotch bonnet peppers and putting them in her mouth and chewing them and then spitting out that juice. It's the pain and the sacrifice that brings clarity. Everclear, I am divine. Yeah, make sure next retreat I keep y'all separate from each other. But it's that sacrifice. They were very sacrificial. From that pain. So I like to use it because it makes me uncomfortable to use Everclear. You see, and through that discomfort, I get more focused and more into the actual work. Sometimes you gotta give yourself a little pain. I know it sounds weird, but a lot of times when we're doing certain work, and we live in certain environments, we have to do things to get ourselves out of that mindset of that environment. Now let's go to the rum aspect. So rum we primarily use for celebration. Well, why am I celebrating before I do the actual ritual or before I actually make the affirmation or speak to that particular spirit guardian thing? Why am I celebrating? Because it's through the praise and it's through the celebration that I strengthen and confirm and bring the proper attention to the seed that I've already foundated. You see, now when you're around people, like I said earlier, who do more complaining and whining than they do celebrating, these are people who are ignoring their divine given authority. You see, they're ignoring their authority in lieu of complaint. And sometimes when we put ourselves in the midst of people like that, we begin to forget our own authority as well. Like I remember one time I worked this job years and years ago. It was one of this like, let me just work something real quick. It was like a little side thing I was doing. And I didn't like the job very much, but I was putting some money together for a moment. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this for a couple months. It was a nighttime thing. And then, and I was working with a brother who I brought onto a job who prior to working that job was like a millionaire. But he messed around. A friend of mine, he's an old time con man. And messed around, got caught by the feds, and it's a whole big thing. It was on CNN and everything. But he was a big time con man. So he had to start back from scratch again. So I'm like, look, man, come on, we ain't doing nothing. Come work this little job, get your little money together so you can stop begging your woman for money every day, man. Considering you hate it so much. And he used to sit on a job and complain every single day. Yo, man, you know how much money, yeah, man. But if you have that kind of earning potential, you'll make it again. Don't worry about it. And I found myself at one point falling into the trap with him. And I was like, man, how much we get in an hour doing this mess? And then I kind of would say, daggin, how much can I actually make an hour? And I'm doing this, And then I told him, I said, listen, in 3 weeks, I'm gonna be out of here. I got a plan. Because I've done this enough. So what I was doing was celebrating and enjoying the seed that I planted earlier. Now, what was the seed that I planted early in my life? High earning potential. I always knew that. I could turn $1 anywhere. That's not a problem. I know how to make dough. So high earning potential. That's my seed, and I'm going to stay on that. Whereas him, he was just building his life around complaint, which told me something. I said, yeah, you never had wealth. You was just a rich dude, but you weren't wealthy. Because wealthy people, even when they hit rock bottom, they usually don't stay at bottom for longer than a year. And then they come back up. Rich people, you might get rich for a moment. You might hit a nice little lick, but you don't really have that mindset of wealth, and then you develop that sense of entitlement almost in a sense like that. So I used my time to celebrate because I knew that, no, there's a bigger plan here. And there's certain seeds that I've already planted. So when we take our time and we praise and we celebrate and we dance and we sing in the midst of what we're going through, we're essentially we're almost showing off our authority. We're almost showing off our authority. We're almost bragging and boasting in those moments about our authority because we're letting the conditions and symptoms know, regardless of whatever you show me in terms of a condition, regardless of what you show me in terms of a symptom, I already know that I'm going to come out of this thing on top, regardless of what. So I'm going to celebrate that. How am I going to celebrate it? With rum. This is why we give rum. You see? Rum has the brown sugar in it. It's sweet, but at the same time, it gets you drunk and all that, but it's sweet. It's not like gin or vodka. So it has that oyin or that sweetness, you see? So the celebratory aspect of your spiritual work, believe it or not, probably accounts for 75 to 80% of the success of the actual work. 75 to 80% of the success of the actual work is your celebratory aspect. Is your ability to look at it and say, I know that this is done and I'm going to celebrate it being done because I come from a celebratory people. We always celebrate no matter what. But see, I'm celebrating my authority. Now, because you might say, well, how does that separate you from any praise and worship organization? Because they're celebrating something else's authority. They've already given their authority to the lower life form, or what some of you may call the devil. They've already objected their authority to the devil. You're celebrating your own authority. You're celebrating your own ability. Why wouldn't you celebrate that? If Olodumare gave you authority to make things happen, why wouldn't you be happy about that? Why wouldn't you celebrate that every single day? Oh my goodness, you wake up and say, I can make any day what I want it to be each day. Wow. The authority that I have inside of me. Yeah, I'm going to drink me some rum. I'm going to dance. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to this, that, and the third. You want to really understand that concept, and I spoke about it recently. I mentioned it. You need to look at Grecian culture. The Greeks took that on from us, and the Greeks, they get a bad rap a lot of times. One thing I got to say about the Greeks is that, yeah, they stole. They sure enough stole. Don't get me wrong now. But one thing that they did in their stealing is that they didn't pervert as much as other cultures did. Some cultures will steal whatever it is that you're doing and then change it a lot. Greeks, there was a clear distinction between what their things was, the Saturnalia and all that, the booty love and all that. And there was a clear distinction between that and what they took, on as in terms of the pagan tradition. And they pretty much kept it. They didn't screw too much up in that sense. But you start to look at the way that they moved in terms of their daily habits, the way they ate, around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, they relaxed, they retired. Now, yeah, some of their activities of retirement, we may say, I don't want to really get into that. You start looking at that with the movie Caligula. You might not want to get into that type of activity. Well, then again, you might, I don't know your style. But my point is, they understood that there was a saying in Greece that only poor people work after 6 o'clock. So, there was an ideology there that when that sun goes down, we relax, we retire. We celebrate, we enjoy life, you see? And it is, again, through that celebratory activity that we're able to say that we are of a divine class, even if we're not. But we are of a divine class, you see? How many of us leave that out, man? In terms of our spiritual, yeah, you may go to a bembe or something once in a while, but do you understand why they're dancing and singing in that bembe? beyond just because it's fun or because they're trying to bring the Orisha down and mount them on certain people. Do you understand what it's really, really about? The drumming and the dancing and the singing and doing all of those things together. And the bembe doesn't just have to be that, man. The bembe is just having a good time. You know, it's enjoying the promises of Olodumare. And you came down here with the promise. You see, that's your authority. That, yeah, I can do certain things. I can make certain things happen. So look at it like this, and this is going to sound harsh. Complaining is wicked. I know it sounds harsh, but just think about it for a second. If you can, throw the logic in there. If celebrating, even in the midst of trouble, even in the midst of problems and tribulations and trials and need I even say persecution, if being able to celebrate in the midst of all of that is a divine act because you're acknowledging what the divine has implanted into you, if you go the other route and you complain as if you don't have that authority and the divine has not implanted in something in you, then you're going against your natural positioning and your natural right. Well, I've said that before. What is wickedness? Going against the natural order. The natural order is for you to be an author of the world. That's natural. For you to be a victim of the world is unnatural. So essentially, somebody who complains and whines is a wicked person. You notice complainers and whiners is usually other stuff that comes behind that. Have you ever met someone who's not a consistent complainer and whiner, who's also not manipulative and uses their complaining and whining to manipulate you and other people? You usually will find a lot of complaining and lying and whining amongst lazy people too. Complaining and whining again, amongst some of the people who are the most unloving, because they haven't planted seeds of anything. And if you ain't planted a seed, then nothing's gonna happen. That's the bottom line. If you ain't planted the seed, nothing's gonna happen. We have nothing to work with if you haven't planted the seed. I say that so often when people come to me and say, man, I want money, I want this, I want that. I say, all right, what you got going? Nothing. Then you ain't gonna get nothing going. We ain't got nothing to work with. You haven't acknowledged first that you have the authority. You got to acknowledge your authority first before I can even work with you. I know that sounds new. I know it does. I know a lot of this stuff sounds new. It's because I'm not paying you to hear it. I mean, you're not paying me to hear it. That's why. You're getting it for free. So you're getting it real. You start paying people, sometimes they think you're paying them to hear what you want to hear. They start playing around. Lucky for me though, whether you pay me or not, I'm still gonna offend you. No, I'm joking. Somewhat. More pineapple juice. I'm telling you though, this is how it works. If your innate authority has not been acknowledged first, then your spiritual work doesn't actually even work. You can't circumvent that. You can't go around it. You can't say, well, I'm not planting these seeds. I'm not doing anything, but I want you to get me this and get me that and get me that. It doesn't work that way. You came to this planet with what? Physicality. Well, what does that mean? This is the realm of doing. You got to do something. A lot of times we're calling for Orisha and different energies to do things that we just too lazy or too insecure to do for ourselves. I want money. And that's, and obviously I keep bringing that up because that's a popular one. I get people all the time say, hey man, I want riches, I want wealth, I want this and that. So then I'll ask questions like this. What do you know about money? What do you know about wealth? Not much. Then why are you even talking to me about this right now? You're not ready for me. You're not ready to have this conversation yet. Do you know anything about investing? Do you know anything about currency? Do you know anything about foreign currencies? Do you know anything about international trade? Just make it simple. Let's go even simpler than that. Do you know anything about compound interest? Make it real simple. Saving, Do you have a bank account? Do you not have a bank account? You know, whatever it is. And I'm not saying you should go get a bank account. I'm not an advocate of that. But what I'm just saying is that a lot of times we haven't even planted the seed, but we want the world. That's wicked. When the Most High, or Olodumare, said, listen, I'm going to show you how to do this, man, but I'm going to give you the power to do it. I'm going to give you the power to do what I can't do in my form because I don't have a physical form. I'm going to negate from myself. I'm going to take a piece of myself away so that it can live in this physical form for a time, which is a negation. But the key that I'm going to give you that's going to balance out the aging carcass of that physical form is I'm going to give you my authority. So now when you come in contact with the Risha and different energies, they will listen to you. You can send them to charge because you have my authority. But you have to prove my authority by doing and planting seed. The same way you are the seed that I planted. See, like picture Olodumare, picture Akara. You guys don't know who Akara is. That's another whole nother conversation. Picture Akara going to Olodumare and saying, listen, all right, now I let you come into being. You said you wanted to be defined. You said you wanted to come into being, and I let that happen. Now, you wanted to define things and learn things. What have you done? And Olodumare says, well, I just been up here flying around in nowhere, in the void. Well, then, you know, you didn't deserve to come into being out of my essence. But see, Olodumare would turn around and say, well, listen, this is what I did. I negated from myself billions of times. I broke myself down to almost nothing so that I could live out what we call the human experience, so that I can learn definition. I could define things. I could separate things. I could segregate them, learn about them, and then put them back together, which is basically what life is. So then the car will say, okay, cool. Yeah. So then, you know what? I'm going to give you some more power. I'm going to give you some more insight. I'm going to give you some more this, that, because you've put that work in, because you've planted those seeds of human beings, or what we call araye. Araye. You know, a lot of times when you're dealing with Yoruba, the words are kind of compressed a little bit. We say araye, but that's a combination of ara and aye. Ara means like, you know, people who inhabitants of people who live somewhere, and aye means the earth's crust. So, you know, it's really ara, aye in that sense. Very similar to when I greeted you all this dawning. I said eku oruro. You know, now most people say ekaro, but ekaro is the shortened version of eku oruro. You know, and eku oruro means I'm welcoming you for the purpose of this dawning. You know, very similar to like if you speak in Fanti, you would say muha. Muha means like good dawning, but muha is short for mimowo aha, which means I give you the dawning. I present to you the dawning. You know, it's good a lot of times. I know it probably doesn't feel as fun, but it's good a lot of times to take your time to learn the fullness of certain words, man. You know, you'd be surprised how rich certain languages are, and even the protocol and the courtesy and the authority that is in certain languages. Like, you know, when you say no, muachi. Muachi is good dawning. Muaha, muajo. Muachi, good dawning. Muaha is good afternoon, excuse me. And then muajo is good evening. So you say muachi, mumawachi. You know, I give you this dawning, or I give you this morning. They would say morning, they wouldn't say dawning. But you know, well, who are you to give me the dawning? Think about it for that. Who are you to give me morning? Well, maybe I need to find that out. But you see, sometimes that gets lost if you don't. So right in the very essence of many languages, you learn some very divine principles in that sense. You learn some very divine principles just in the idea of just looking at the words and looking how people speak about certain things, you know. Yeah. So divine authority is the word of the day, man. And divine authority is strengthened through celebration. All right. That's your shortcut. That's your fun fact. That's your shortcut trick. If you want to know how to strengthen your ability to get certain things done, 2 simple steps. You plant a seed and you celebrate over the seed. Easy. Right? That's easy. You could do that. You could do all of that in your living room. That's very easy. You plant a seed and you celebrate it. And no matter what's happening, keep celebrating it. No matter what's happening, you celebrate it. That's the key. Oh, I need a little bit more juice. Don't be deterred by false evidence. Sometimes you see things that are no longer there, but you still think it's there because the evidence of their presence being there at one time is still present. So then you lose hope. You see? You lose hope. So now you go into that place of complaining and whining, complaining and whining, and you abject your spiritual authority. Say, okay, well, I don't have any authority over this because I saw evidence that somebody else was here. Nah, it doesn't go that way. You celebrate despite. No, I got this. I did this. I got this. That's why we give the rum when we do the ritual. Here, I'm going to give you the rum now. We're going to celebrate now. Before we even do the ebo, I'm going to give you the rum. Because I know you're going to do it. I know my authority. You're going to do it. I'm not even worried about that. You think when Olodumare breathed the breath of life into people and Obatala formed their heads, that they were nervous? I hope this works. Come on. Nobody was nervous. They knew their divine right and their divine authority. You have the same exact thing. You have the same exact thing. Now, just remember, though, that gives you the right to screw things up. So just because you have divine right and divine authority, don't go out there now shaking a tail feather and saying, well, I do what I want. I do what I want. Don't be like them little kids who be on Maury Povich show, them daytime shows that their parents can't handle anymore. You know, they come in there, them little girls, they have little mini skirts on and stuff. I slept with 20 different men. I do what I want. I do what I want. My mother can't tell me nothing. I smacked her. I beat her. Don't be like those kids. Just because you got divine authority doesn't mean that you have divine wisdom. It's not the same thing. Doesn't mean that you're tapped into the sciences of Orunmila, that you have that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You're going through all this work and all these processes in order to gain that. You know, but understand that the more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you gain and that you take on, the more authority that you actually have, because the more your nervous system can stand. So studying is a divine aspect of this. You might be wondering why I haven't given you guys rituals in a long time. Probably been maybe 2 years since you got a ritual from me, or longer. There's a reason for that. I don't even talk about Orisha that much anymore with you. Going back to what Brother Byron said, cracking open the veil. He said going through, but I'm going to say tearing it. Ripping that veil in half. The veil of reality that keeps you from seeing your true self, your true glorified self. You got to rip that veil in half, man. Stop being so scared all the time. Stop being so afraid of judgment. You have the divine right and authority to make a total fool out of yourself in this life. You only go around a couple of 100 times. Might as well enjoy them. You have the divine right to be a guru. You have the divine right to be a gangster. Anything you so choose to be. You know, and of course, there's cause and effect. And of course, people listening, especially the older people, they're the ones who don't understand things like, how you going to tell somebody that? Because a lot of them are still in church in their minds. They're still sitting in the pews waiting for Jesus to come back. That's where their minds still are. They're still trapped there in those cycles. It's hard for them to understand. Well, if you look at these Orisha, we're told that we're older than Orisha and we have authority over them. And we see how wild the freaking Orisha are. Then don't we also have passage and ability to be just as wild? What's constraining us? You hear about all of the lovers Oya had, or Oshun, or Shango, or their swiftness to action, their swiftness to judgment, their swiftness to correcting certain situations. You see, or you read stories about Orunmila divining for Olofin. Olofin is the spirit of the law. You know, so it's like doing a reading for the president of the United States. Boldly, like, look, let me tell you what it is. No fear, because I know what I'm tapped into. I'm not afraid. You know, how many of us are really rolling like that? Well, just think about this. If you're denying yourself in that way, you're denying your authority. If you're denying your authority, you're essentially, you got to realize one thing will take the place of the other. So in our tradition, we have, and I'm going to say this and we're going to close out soon. So let me just say this. Anybody who has any questions or anything like that, excuse me. I'm trying to sit up. My stomach is still all knotted up. But anybody who has any questions or whatever, just throw them in the chat room or do the call-in number thing before we head out. But in our system, we have what's called the Ajogan. And some of you may be very familiar with or at least a little bit familiar with the Ajogan. We call them the obstacles, right? Well, you know, and we say, okay, well, Eshu Ilegba is the owner of those obstacles. Well, look at it like this for a second. When you choose complaints over celebration or celebration over complaints, right? You can make certain energies through your celebration or through your works or through your ebos. You bring them into a space. They live in that space through the actual work that you do, right? So if I'm constantly full of praise and full of celebration, and I'm not talking about walking around every 5 minutes, Ashe, that's right, Ashe. I'm not saying that. You don't have to do that. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be false. You don't have to replace Amen with Ashe, you know, or thank you, Jesus, with thank you, ancestors. You know, I'm not saying be phony about it, you know, but what I'm saying is that when you have a heart of praise, you know what I'm saying? When you have a heart full of praise, you know, it might be as simple as looking at yourself in the mirror and say, damn, I'm gorgeous. Thank you. You might be one of those type of people. You know what I mean? I had a cousin like that, you know. He wasn't really that good looking to me, but I don't know. It's hard for me to judge guys because, like I said, I think all guys are ugly. But he used to always do that. Man, I look good. I'm so chocolatey. I'm so chocolatey, yo. I look so good. All right. Well, that's what he was thankful for, you know. But so whatever it is, but you understand that when you fill your temple, when you fill your aura with that praise, you don't allow other things to inhabit that same space. You see, now that's key. I'm gonna show you why that's key. If we can say that praise in that sense, right, fills a certain space. It's just like if any of you, again, have ever been to a bembe or any type of spiritual celebration, right? What you've noticed is that as soon as you go into the room or into the space, wherever it's being held, it's like that entire environment, you know, is filled up with that particular energy. Like it just, you know, it's undeniable. I mean, honestly, and that's in any religion, you know, any spiritual system, you know, when people are really thanks and stuff like that, the vibration and the feeling that kind of takes over those spaces is undeniable. You know, regardless if you agree with what they're praising or not, you know, there's something kind of special. You know, in some senses, there's something kind of special about praise in that sense, right? So you're giving in that sense, it's just like when you make Orisha, you know, or if you're doing a particular ceremony and, you know, you give those Orisha a place to be. It could be a mat where you lay out the mat of wealth, as we call it in the tradition, you know, or you may have a pot, or you may have a shrine and you say, okay, I'm gonna give them a place to be. It's no different with a jogan, obstacles, or what some of you may perceive as demons. They're not demons though, but you know, we'll roll with it for a minute. They perceive as those particular hindering energies. You know, look at it like this. Where do I want them to live? And I'll explain it again, through praise, those divine energies and that divine authority, you become filled with it. It lives in you. Through whining, complaining, and giving more energy and value to your circumstance, and giving more energy and value to the symptoms of your circumstance, you give the obstacles a place to live. So which one do you want living in you? Do you want those divine energies living in you, or do you want those blocking, obstructing energies to live in you? My thing is, if you don't have a connection to the divine through divine lineage, I don't think you should have anywhere to live. I don't know if you all can get that per se. But if you think about what I spoke about last strong, and I told you those who are soulless don't have a connection. You know, so what they have to do is try to figure out a way to co-opt your connection. So essentially, they're homeless. So they figure out a way to take your home, castrate the man, then you could rape the woman. And sometimes you don't understand that when you deny your divine authority, you're giving them a place to live. Whether it be in your own psyche, you're giving them a place to live. My thing is, I don't want my enemies to live anywhere. I don't want any energy that's trying to obstruct me or that's against me to live anywhere. I want it to roam the earth for 5 years and then slowly dissipate into nothing without a home. How many of you feel like you don't have a home? Who feel homeless, like you have no root? Well, it might be because you've taken on that same exact energy of the soulless. You've pretended that their story is your story. You've pretended that their calamity is your calamity. It's, you know, something to kind of think about. I used to always talk about that when I'd see like new parents and how often they would always be checking the crib for their baby. I remember I had a friend, and it was so sad because I did have a friend who, him and his wife, they dealt with this. But I used to always say, man, that baby ain't gonna die in there. You know, I said, you just used to, we're taught to always look into the crib like that because we're taught that from you know, groups of people who had 50% infant mortality rates. You don't have that problem. Man, stop looking in the crib. Baby's strong, the baby's fine. Go on and do something else. You know, but sometimes we take on, see, that's the greatest way to control the people. I've said that in early shows. The way you control the people is by giving them your mind. Because once you give them your mind, you give them your fears and your insecurities and your hangups. You know, so we end up, we eat too much. You know, we always have this sense of depravity and lack, though that may not have anything to do with your story. You know, I see people in certain regions, because I travel a lot, food all over the place, fish in the water, fruit on the trees, anything are growing in the soil, and they talking about they're hungry. You took on somebody else's story. That's not your story, man. You need to put that Bible down for a second. You reading some old stories that got nothing to do with you, player. Your situation is straight. That's not what your need is. But they've controlled you by giving you their mind and their fears. You see? So you've given that energy or that ajogan or that obstacle a place to live when it should never have been given a place to live. You've given it a place to settle in your own psyche. I don't want that. I don't want that energy to settle in on my psyche. I want it to be homeless. I want it to have no place to land, no place to root in. I only want my divine protectorates to have a place to land in the root. Just give it some thought. All right, we're going to get out of here. I don't think there's any questions in the chat room. I was scanning a little bit while I was talking. And I'm not going to overdo it because I was able to hold on for this long. I'm just looking through a little bit. I had somebody send me a message too, complaining that Friday's show was too short. See a sense of entitlement. See how comfortable people get. You go on YouTube all day, people do these little 5-10 minute segments. I do 2 hours. I get sick one day and I think the show was 24 minutes and people complaining. That makes me say, I ain't doing any other shows. Y'all can go somewhere. All right, so we're gonna have. I was scanning through the chat room real quick just to see if there was any other questions. All right, and we're gonna get out of here. All right, so I will be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. New subject, of course, and like I said, just think about the opportunities that you have to complain over the opportunities you have to celebrate. And I would urge you today to take some time to celebrate in your rituals. Don't just light the incense. Don't just spray the water. Don't just smoke the cigar. Do the Running Man. You know what the Running Man is? Do the Running Man dance. Do the Cabbage Patch. Do the things that make you celebrate. I'm joking on that, but just celebrate the promises of authority that you've been given and watch what'll happen. But make sure you do it over a seed. It's almost like celebrating the birth of a baby. That's why when babies are born, we clap, we sing, we dance. We're so happy because the baby represents the promise of authority and a new seed, and we celebrate over it. Do that in your own Brother Byron. Do that in your own work, and don't give those energies a place to live. Don't give them a place to land. Do your complaining and your whining. As soon as you feel that type of spirit come on you, when you want to complain and you want to whine, immediately take it to a place where you start to celebrate. Spray out some rum and say, I'm celebrating what's getting ready to happen. And I know it sounds real churchy, but hey man, you got to have enough security. You got to be able to look around at every single system and see what works and what doesn't work. Don't be so insecure that you're afraid to look at another system and say, I can get something from that. Because understand that all those systems got what they got from you, or from the systems that not even from you. I'm not going to give you that much props. They got what they got from the systems that you're trying to learn right now. All right. So there's nothing wrong with looking at Islam or looking at Judaism or looking at Protestant Christianity and say, okay, well, let's look what works. And I'm not talking about the things that you got to be strong enough and healthy enough to go back and look. Some of you are still addicted, so you need to stay away until you can get strong enough. Some of you mess around, go back in there and be evangelizing up in here next and putting, pamphlets in the chat room. So I'm not talking about that. You got to be strong enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some of you you're just 2 hours out of it. You know what I mean? And I know you've been conscious for 2-3 years and everything, but that's a relatively short time. I've been doing these segments for like 6 years, and I always say they're new segments because in relative to the amount of time that I've been doing this actual work, that's nothing. This has been the shortest experience I've had in my entire journey of consciousness. So I praise you for the 2-3 years that you've put in. I'm with you, but there's so much more in this journey to learn. Oh man, it gets beyond that point of being angry because you're learning this and learning that. And they putting this in the food and once you're able to get beyond that, when you've settled some of those things, figured out what you want to eat, what you want to wear, how you want to work, how you want to make your money, things like that, then it starts to get enjoyable. There's another side to consciousness, where it's a fun side to it as well. Some people go too quickly into the fun side and they don't get anything done, but there's another side to it where it becomes very celebratory, because you start to understand too some of the habits and inklings that you have. You start to learn where they came from. If you like to play dice, or you like to hunt, or watch certain sports and things like that, you start to see where it comes from, and it becomes a much more, like, I'm looking at the slide right now that's saying life is the magic ritual. That was one of the things I said in the show. You learn that your full experience of life is the magic ritual. Imagine that, being in the spiritual world, saying, I'm gonna make another form of myself, and it's gonna live a whole nother life that I'm gonna sit back and observe. Ain't that deep? You just think about it. That's deep. What do we do when we make children? Isn't that a form of magic ritual? And your children don't even have the same connection that you do to your higher self, to your Ori Iporim. Your children don't even have that same connection. So your whole coming into being was a process of somebody performing a divine magic ritual. So that means essentially you're made of magic. All right. And this ain't some Black Lives Matter corny stuff. All right. So just be clear on that. So don't start quoting that nonsense. All right. So we're going to get out of here. All right. I'll speak to you all tomorrow, and hopefully tomorrow early show, I will not be too sick to actually do the show. All right. Until such time, thank you everyone for your well wishes, for your phone calls, and for looking out for me, and just making sure that Magic Lives Matter. That's funny. That's a t-shirt. Lotus Scholar. Somebody going to take that, put that on a shirt. Magic Lives Matter. You better hurry up and do it for the Wiccans do it. Because that looks like a show enough Wiccan slogan. They love taking stuff that don't belong to them. But yeah, y'all be careful with them Wiccans too, man. Them Wiccans love to try to set you up for some orgy action. Yeah, I got caught up in one. I didn't do the orgy, but I got caught up in some of that. Especially when they see sisters, they always inviting sisters to their gatherings. Next thing you know, they all be licking on you, trying to get that energy. But yeah, man, just keep in mind, take some time to celebrate. And like I said, I just thank you everyone who checked in for me. I really do appreciate that, man. I didn't get back to, I don't think I got back. I may have got back to one or two people, maybe. I was blurred out, so I don't even think I got back to anyone. I wasn't ignoring you. It's just that I was like, I couldn't even type. I was messed up. So, again, just thank you for looking out and making sure the old man was still alive. All right. And like I said, just don't forget this important piece. Peace.